Okay, there we go. What's up, everyone? We're here for Office Hours, episode 53, How to Use Your Press. I'm Big Sto. Nora's on the other side. How are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited about this episode. And before we jump into it, we have a whole other episode about how to get press. So I actually don't know what episode that is. I don't remember. But go back. There is
I want to say 30s. I want to say the 30s, but I could be completely off.
We should at some point still make like a playlist.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I already got ideas. I already got it.
This is a good episode to watch. With that, shout out to Aaron who just joined us. As always, y'all, if you have any questions, drop those in. But today we're talking about once you've gotten that press. Shout out to Aaron, episode 32, actually. Thank you.
That was close.
Y'all, by the way, Aaron has some new merch he's designed, and so y'all should go check that out because it's cool. I got mine, and I was going to wear it today, but it was too hot. But you will see it in a future Office Hours episode. Anyway.
Perfect. I just wrote down. I think what we'll do is start including related episodes in the description. Actually, so be on the lookout for that in the future. But yeah, we have a couple of, and we've talked about press honestly throughout a few episodes. Honestly, throughout these 53 episodes that we've done. But I do think it is important. Like once you've landed that spot, the work doesn't, or whatever press that is, the work doesn't necessarily end there. And I think that's kind of the direction that we're trying to go in, at least for this episode.
Well, and I think part of that is a mindset thing, right? Like artists think that they get a placement in some blog or some newspaper or some article, and then all of a sudden people will discover them, right? Complex will write about you, and then you will now become famous. It doesn't work that way, partly because that model doesn't exist. Like, when was the last time you checked Fader or Complex for something? Like, so
and for background, both of us are right. Both of us wrote during that era, to be clear.
Right. At some point that worked. Just that's not the model anymore. Right. And so part of getting press is what's the value? Maybe this is where we start, is what is the value of press in today's kind of musical landscape? And I want to preface that by saying when we talk about press, yeah, the big outlets, but the small ones, the smaller blogs, the local podcasts, the local newspaper, the Instagram live you're doing with someone, the Twitter spaces, like that is all press. And so part of what's changed over the last few years is that there's like journalistic press, and that's valuable. But there's also a communal form of press that is equally impactful, equally valuable. And I think
if not more so,
because those markets, those outlets are speaking to a core base that really, really cares about whatever it is that they're listening to or watching. So the first part of this is to really think about all press as having the same potential to do something important for your career, whether it's the big NPR tiny desk or it's the smaller local blog that has a smaller listenership, but those listeners are super active, super engaged. You should be as excited and hyped and share both of those equally.
And Sandroid, how's it going? Appreciate you stopping by. Also, pardon my voice, everyone. I'm a little under the weather. Got my tea on me, so bear with me. But with the other thing about press, well, first off, let me just bounce off of your original point, where I think that's so common is artists are constantly trying to get the bigger feature, the complex, the fader, the NPR, which there's nothing wrong with going for that. And when you inevitably land that, emphasis on inevitably, that's still something worth celebrating, but it is still not, and especially not in 2022, it's not the huge career shifting kind of, I guess, press that it was back in the day. And again, that's not to say it's not useful. It is still useful. But like Nora said, like so are the smaller blogs and publications. So are the Instagram lives that you all are going on. And that's important because especially in those cases, those are getting lost to time. And I feel like in some cases, artists will hop on a live and then it ends and then that's it. And so, press is not just, I feel like a lot of artists use press as like it happened, it's here, now it's done.
Right.
Where's my next piece of press? And that, so one thing I want everyone to walk away with in this episode is that any press is evergreen content that you can use for literally ever.
Yeah, I have a piece that I wrote before like quarantine about professionalism, and that I share that regularly. Other people share it regularly. That still brings me in business. And that piece is at least like 2 or 3 years old now. So
was it the Shopify piece?
No, the Shopify piece is more recent. This is the professionalism piece about how professionalism is not about proximity to whiteness. And how we decolonize our ideas of professionalism. We can put both of those in the show notes as well. So the other thing to think about for press before we get into like actually how to use it is press is great. Press is even better when you have your internal systems in place. So when you do get that placement that you want, or you do, someone does write about you or they do feature you, make sure you have all your internal systems so that when I click on that link to learn more about Sandroid, I go to the website, or there's an invitation to join the newsletter, or there's a link to the Discord or whatever it might be, so that you have a plan for how to take this opportunity of press and channel people who are curious about you into where you want them to be. So if I read an article about you or I watch you somewhere, you don't ever know that I did that unless there's a specific way that you're going to funnel me to where you want me to go. And so that's part of your kind of internal infrastructure to think about. And part of that is when you're talking to the journalist or whoever to say, can you share this link, or what will this tag to, or here's the information I want you to share with people. But that's also making sure you have your house in order to capture people once they hear your name or once they're curious about you. So those are, I would say, the two kind of internal pieces, is to have those systems in place for yourself and to really remember that all press can be equally valuable if you leverage it the right way.
Mm-hmm. And I think the making sure that your infrastructure is good to go is super important because again, regardless of the platform that's covering you, like I should be able to get to wherever you want me to be at. That's the whole point of the press. It's not just to stream your song or stream your album and then that's it. I feel like at that point, like the press, I mean, it's still useful, but like I feel like some opportunity is lost there, I guess. Whereas, again, if you have all your platforms set up that way, when I'm done scrolling and I can check your page or whatever, I'm immediately grabbed or whatever, and I'm following you or subscribe to your page or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, making sure that you have that in order is important. And then, just to bounce off your last point is, when you have all that press, keeping it all organized and in order so that you can use it later is extremely important. And, like Nora said, there's pieces that she's written and worked on. There's stuff that I've worked on from years ago that still is relevant today and still useful today. And so, again, you're always grabbing new fans. You're always having new people, check out your page or, see you on the timeline. So, it's never something that you should just use it. Like, I feel like so many artists get caught like, oh, I have this press for, a month of time or something like that. And now there's no point in posting it.
So that's what we're going to get into. But I want to touch on
Yeah.
what you said real quick about like organizational systems is
Right.
like have a central place where people can check out your press. So whether that's your website or your LinkedIn or your Linktree or someplace where I can go and be like, cool, here's all the press that Aaron has done. And that's external facing. It also helps to have like a spreadsheet for yourself where you can look at all the press that you've done, where you have the contact information for your interviewer. Because one of the values of press isn't just in the article that's going out, but in the relationship with the journalist who is talking to you. So having that spreadsheet, and that's helpful from an organizational perspective, because you can open that document and be like, oh, this thing that I did 3 years ago, I haven't shared it in a while. I can share that. And then when you share it, you tag the journalist, you tag the outlet, you can do like hey, this was my first, you give people some context. So keeping your systems organized internally makes it so much easier, because sometimes you do so many, you forget.
Right.
Some of you are doing so many things, it's hard to keep track of. So that's also really important. And if you're going to use press, to have that internal system. So kind of to where you were heading to, Sto, once you have that press, what is one thing people should do with that press? How do you use it?
Right. And so that's where, again, we have so many tools, especially in 2022, to keep track of all that. So between spreadsheets, one thing I always tell artists to do is screenshot your press, or like chop it up, whatever it is. If you just got covered by a blog, like screenshot that. If you were just on a podcast or an IG live, clip that and post that clip on your channels. That way people, we see so many, it's not even just artists, like people do this all the time when they're being interviewed or whatever. You don't just see, here's a 50-minute interview right here in your face. Like you'll usually see a clip that either is causing conversation or discussion or whatever, and then you're like, oh snap, okay, I need to hear the whole thing, and then boom, you hop over there. It's the same thing here. If you get covered by a blog, take a screenshot, even if it's just a portion of an interview or a quote from the publication. That leads people, that's the context, again, that leads people to whether it's the actual press link or your website. Same with the quotes or the IG lives. Like take the highlights of each of those and post them up, and again, add that context and explain what's happening so that people can, okay, now I'm interested. Now I want to see the whole thing. I want to see how this ended. I want to see how this started, et cetera, et cetera.
It's really about taking big pieces of content and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces for people, right? Because the ask that someone read an entire article or watch an entire, that's a big ask. And
Right.
so it's breaking down the content into like, what are the gems that you drop? What are the quotables? What are the sound bites? And breaking it down into those pieces. And it's also reconstructing the medium of the interview. So if it's an audio video, add captions. If it's a
Right.
written video, maybe if it's like a written piece of press, maybe you add a visual element to it. So
Right.
It's redesigning and repurposing, partly because different people like different ways of consuming. So your visual learners can interpret. Sorry, y'all, I'm getting tongue-tied. Your visual learners can get the content visually. Your auditory learners can get it auditorily, right? And you're being accessible to all of your audience rather than only giving them one option. And if that option doesn't work for them, you lose it. This is why things like closed captions and like alternative text and things like that are really important, because it makes your press accessible to everybody. So that's the other piece, is you can take one piece of press and instead of saying, hey, everybody, I did this interview with Sto, go read it, you tell them exactly what that interview said. And I think sometimes people worry if I tell them what the interview said, they're not going to read it. But it's actually the opposite. If you tease, right? It's like we watch movies because we saw a trailer.
Right.
We listen to a song because we heard a little snippet of it. And it's the same idea with press. So take your pieces and break it down into bite-sized, digestible content.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Mm-hmm.
can use it over and over and over again across all your platforms. It can go in your newsletter. It can go on your Discord. It can go on your Instagram. It can go on your LinkedIn. It can go in your Patreon. It can go in all these different places because you have snacks. Think of it as like you're giving your audience snacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you pretty much took the point right out of my mouth. But yeah, because then that way again, like if it's a blog post again, you leading people, or I'm sorry, just sharing that link. That doesn't really like, I mean, sure, some people will click it, but if you're able to again take the text and screenshot it, or like Nora said, add a visual effect to it. Now you've taken one piece of text. It's not even the whole thing. You've taken one piece of text and turned it into 3 different pieces of content that now you can use across all your platforms versus hoping and praying, hey guys, I got covered over here. Please click it. Like if you add another element to it, it's easier to grab people. I feel like we talk about this a lot, and like especially given the discourse currently, like content is not a bad thing. Like I feel like that once we saw some of these articles about labels forcing artists to make content, I feel like some artists on the independent side have thought that it's a bad idea. But if you show your audience different press in different ways, it just makes it easier for them to get engaged. It's easier for them to get in to be enticed by the teaser. And like I said, we've seen so many artists, celebrities, etc., people, businesses, whatever, do this time and time again. And like Nora said, you have to respect your consumers' time. Not everybody has an hour to sit down and listen to the podcast you are on at that exact second. But maybe if they see a trailer or they see a teaser, they're like, ooh, wait a minute, hold on, let me save this for later. And then you can go from there. And again, even with your appearances, I don't understand why artists will just leave it to die like a week out. Because 3 years down the line, or 5 years, 10, 20, whatever, when you're doing even bigger things, people are going to go back and be like, oh, damn, this is where they started. And you can always use that, like I said, forever. It's not just for a rollout. It's not just for a week. You can use it for the entirety of your career.
Well, and part of that is for so many of you who are early in your careers, more people have not seen stuff about you than they have seen about you. So I understand that in your mind, it's like, oh, this is old. I've already shared this. It's new to somebody. And so in the same way that we tell you, share your old songs, share your old press. And that's a great way to keep the relationship alive with the author, because then it invites the author, right? You've tagged them, you've credited them. One, they feel appreciated, respected, like working with you was a good use of their time. But two, it puts you back on their radar for that author to come back and be like, oh, maybe we should do a follow-up. Oh, it's been a few years. Let's check back in. Oh, and so it creates all kinds of openings. One of the biggest things that I think press provides for artists is it is a form of social proof, right? What press does is it says someone else is interested enough in you, so maybe I should pay attention to that thing. In a world where people are stressed and busy and like really our brains have just gotten lazy, we look to other people. This is why influencers are so fucking impactful these days, because a lot of people look to other people to make decisions for them. And so for better, for worse, right? This is not the place where we're going to debate whether that's a good thing, not why that happens. Like, I'm sure y'all can tell how I feel about it. But what press does is it says, look, someone else thought I was interesting enough. So you should too. And even if they don't ever read the article, even if they don't ever watch the thing, the fact that someone else put you on their stage, or the fact that someone else interviewed you, talked to you, recorded you, that changes the way that people are going to think about you.
Yeah.
And so then it opens up, oh, well, maybe I should pay attention to Sto, or maybe I should look at this thing differently. And the reality is, and you've heard me say this when talking about your music and your events, people need multiple interaction points with something before that thing resonates and sinks in with them. And it's the same thing with your press. Your press is part of, like if you want to say, oh, I'm the hottest artist, so and so, press is the way that you prove that, right? Because it shows me that other people are invested in you, are thinking about you, are curious about you. So that's the thing. Sorry, this is gonna pop off, so you guys can watch me fix my a little bit. But that's the reason press matters. Is it provides social proof, and so you can use it not just about the context, but about the bigger picture that press is providing and telling people that they should be paying attention.
Exactly. And again, I it's regardless of platform, like or size of platform or whatever. I do feel like artists sometimes overlook the smaller publications that have covered them in the past. When again, between quotes and just text that you can use on your website or whatever, or even when you're making pitches for other opportunities like festivals and stuff like that, like, don't just let your press live for one era of time. It's, again, think to other people that you look up to. You probably have watched some of their old interviews and press and read some of the other things that they've done. It's the same here.
I think people get really stuck on like the clout aspect
Yeah.
of press, that like, oh, this name wasn't big enough, or this art,
Right.
this didn't get as much views. And like, it's that people expect like 0 to 100 like that. And it doesn't work that way. And so the more you share these little bits and pieces, the more you like really focusing on quality over quantity, then that's when like overnight success is going to happen, or that 0 to 100 is going to happen. And so and part of that is also sharing the behind the scenes of press. Are you going for an interview? Let me see you go. Let me see you get ready. Let me see you prepare. Let me see you, like, if it's an email interview and they've sent you questions, let me see you type that out.
Right.
Go on live and be like, yo, you guys, they asked me this question and I don't know how to answer it, or here's what I'm thinking. And involve your audience in the process. It's really a lot of the same things that apply to sharing your project can apply to press, because at the end of the day, it's a way for your audience to get to know you. It's another way for your audience to get insight into your process, into who you are, into how you think. And so the more you share that, like really the whole theme of today's episode is how to use press. It's to share. It's to keep it out there. It never expires. And if you're excited about it, other people will be excited about it. So that shame, I think, that a lot of artists feel, or I don't know if it's like embarrassment or it's shyness, no one's going to look at an article and be like, oh shit, that was written 6 months ago. Why are you sharing it now?
Right.
They're going to be like, cool, thank you. I missed it the first time around. And so if you allow yourself to step out of like that ego piece and see press as an opportunity to tell your story and connect, then that's always going to be relevant, no matter where you're at or what you're doing with your career.
Right. The only last piece I wanted to add is even sometimes if you're getting covered by the bigger publications, they do not always share the piece multiple times. I do think artists have this idea like, ooh, like Complex or Fader, they're going to just keep sharing it. When a lot of times they don't. The authors usually will share it more than the publication themselves. And so that's another reason why it's important to get it, to make sure you are building that relationship with the person that covered you. Do not just do the thing where they cover you and then you literally don't talk to them again until you need them to cover you again. And they're like, oh, well, you covered me last time. Like, that is one of the worst ways to approach like an actual building like relationship with someone in the press. And it's a surefire way almost to make sure you don't get covered again. And so, yeah, take the time to share the press and And again, put it in places for people to see, because again, no one else is going to share it for you. Like, that's the other part of it.
Including the outlet. Like, I
right,
think that's
including
really,
the outlet.
I think that's a really
Right.
important thing, Sto, that you said, because I think folks are like, well, Sto, Office Hours wrote about me, so they'll share it, and sometimes they don't, because they're
a publication. They keep it moving.
Right? Their value is in something else, right? And so you benefit differently than they benefit. And so I think that point, and this is also true in why keeping relationships with the journalists themselves is really important. Shout out to India, welcome. The journalists leave publications all the time. We've seen over the last few years, like huge companies that are closing, they do mass layoffs. That journalist is always going to have a relationship with you if you nurture it, independent of who's writing their paycheck. So you want to make sure that you're cultivating that relationship with the journalist, regardless of what site they're at or what publication or this, that, and the other. And that's a really important thing to understand about the relationship piece of press. That is, and especially as journalists, because there's a lot of turnover. People move around a lot. Their email addresses change based on who's writing their check. And so that's also just another important thing to remember, is it's about the person, not the publication.
Right. Exactly. Excuse me. Dang, we went pretty long this time too, but this was I think this is an important episode. If you're still watching, first off, hit the like button. Also, thank you for keeping up with us. But my homework is go find some press. A lot of you reading this have gotten covered in the past. I can almost guarantee that. So go in the archives, pull out some press, put it in your newsletter. Put it on any platform. Chances.
Even more specific, I'm going to give you homework to take your old article, share it, and tag me in it. I don't want to volunteer, Sto, but I want you to be like, yo, we're doing our office hours homework. Tag me in it.
But tag under the tweet, because the way the algorithm works, it'll mess everything up. So tag Nora, tag us under the tweet, not in the actual publication tweet, because then no one's going to see it.
But show us you did your homework, and then we'll share it out on your behalf, because like this is that community piece, right? But that's the homework. Go into your archive, share it, but tag me, because I want to see that you're doing your office hours homework, y'all. Like, this is how, like, some of you watch these episodes and then don't do the action piece. And the action piece is what's going to, step by step, create the changes that you want to see in your career. So if you're not taking the action, then I'm glad that this was entertaining for you, but that shift isn't going to come without the movement behind it. So that's the intention behind the homework, y'all.
Right, absolutely.
But let's save Sto's voice. I gave Sto a Persian home remedy, and apparently it did not go well last night. So I apologize. Y'all, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe. This is how we build a community and get more eyes on this kind of stuff, so that we create new normals in the music industry. I would love to hear in the comments from you, what has worked for you in press? What press have you gotten that you're super proud of? Maybe you want to share a link, drop that, brag on yourself in the comments. We love to read that stuff, and we'll always respond. Other than that, take care of yourselves, drink some water, stretch, breathe. Thanks, Indio. Shout out to Indio, who says, do not forget to follow Sto and Nora. You share some good things on the internet.
Right.
Sto, final words?
Yeah, just take some time to rest, drink some water, get a website, get a newsletter. We'll be back super soon, I think, with our consultation, actually.
Yeah, we're doing a live consult on September 6th, so y'all come back and check that out.
Perfect. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.